Ordinary corpse fiends die when exposed to light, but powerful corpse fiends, even under the sun, can plow 2 acres of land and be perfectly fine because they aren't afraid of sunlight at all. Examples of this are Shi Xiao and the protagonist of this video, King Shui. However, Shui is different from Shi Xiao because when he ran a dungeon with Hanli, he didn't wear the work clothes and still got a good ending. Moreover, the plot of the strategic game where Hanli blackmails Shui is also maxed out on entertainment value. In this video, let's take a comprehensive look at King Shui. Hello everyone, I'm White Horse Monkey. First, upon hearing the name Shui, you know it's definitely related to royalty. After all, Aizenjoro Xuanya is still somewhat famous. Later, when author Wang Yu paid homage, he actually wrote Shui's name as Xuanya. In the novel, King Shui is a corpse fiend from the Shuling mountain range of the Great Jin. Before his death, he was an ancient emperor known for his cruelty. After his corpse became sentient, he relied on the Mingyi heavenly corpse art to cultivate into a 10,000-year corpse king. Of course, he wasn't the only one who turned into a zombie. His son, concubines, generals, and guards all became corpse fiends. Shui's strength is at the peak of the mid-nascent soul stage, and he is also skilled in the earth evasion art. His situation is somewhat similar to the heavenly star sages, as they both belong to the type that gets a buff when at home. If Shui stays in his tomb in the Shuling mountain range, his divine abilities are almost equivalent to the late nascent soul stage. So, under normal circumstances, King Xuanya doesn't leave his tomb. But their sex corpse Dao secret art is quite special. If they want to advance their cultivation, they must continuously absorb the vital souls of cultivators. In the novel, the first to have dealings with Hanli was Xuanya's son, Little Xian. After Little Xian captured a low-level cultivator, this cultivator, in order to survive, actually offered to act as a henchman. He asked Little Xian to lend him a treasure so that after getting out, he could use it as bait to lure other cultivators to the Shuling mountain range for treasure hunting. Little Xian, wanting a continuous supply of vital souls, bestowed the Vajra cover as bait to lure cultivators. This entrapment method did indeed attract quite a few cultivators, but after encountering Hanli, the lure failed. This was because Hanli, who on the surface only had a foundation establishment cultivation base, was actually a mid-nascent soul cultivator. However, Hanli wasn't intentionally hiding his cultivation. It was mainly because he was almost killed by a backlash from baleful qi. Now, although he was using the 5 Devils soul-locking art to temporarily control the baleful qi, a side effect was that he could only exert the strength of a foundation establishment cultivator. After Hanli obtained the Vajra cover, the Great Development Spirit Monarch in his mind deduced that this was a treasure refined by a 10,000-year corpse king using a Vajra Saraira. Once Hanli heard it involved a 10,000-year corpse king, he was even more hesitant. Before his baleful qi issue was resolved, he would absolutely not dare to go treasure hunting. Hanli's behavior of teasing but not committing made King Shui very dissatisfied. After all, the Vajra cover was a gift he gave to Little Xian. But the fact that Hanli could forcibly keep the Vajra cover and destroy Little Xian's wisp of soul inside it proved his strength was impressive. So, he prepared to send a Corpse King avatar to deal with Hanli. But before dealing with Hanli, King Xuanya had more important things to do. He was about to advance to the heavenly corpse body, reaching the late nascent soul stage. However, this advancement required a massive amount of cultivators' vital souls, which created a problem. If he went out to hunt on a large scale, he would surely be attacked by all the cultivators of the Great Jin. But if he secretly snatched people, it would take too long to reach his quota. Just then, a demon cultivator named True Monarch Tianfeng came to offer advice. He suggested that Xuanya secretly control the 4 major nearby families. This way, he could use the pretext of internal family strife to harvest a large number of vital souls without being easily discovered. True Monarch Tianfeng was a notorious demon cultivator whose strength was also at the mid-nascent soul stage. Shui suspected that True Monarch Tianfeng didn't have good intentions, but after putting the plan into practice, he did reap some sweet rewards. For example, he first controlled the Kong family and then successfully annihilated the Feng family, which caused Shui to lower his guard. However, the remaining two great families were more troublesome, forcing Shui to personally leave the mountain to control them. To avoid being backstabbed by true monarch Tianfeng, Shui left his tomb in secret. Before leaving, he also dispatched two powerful avatars to hunt down Hanli and retrieve the confiscated Vajra cover. Shui's plan was to resolve all matters as quickly as possible so that he could enter seclusion with peace of mind. Although Shui's plan was well thought out, upon leaving the mountain, he discovered that he had been ambushed by the two great families. In reality, true monarch Tianfeng's suggestion was a trap, as he had long coveted Xuanye's heavenly corpse pearl. This pearl, found inside a corpse fiend, is the best auxiliary treasure for practicing body cultivation techniques. Since Xuanye's strength was comparable to the late nascent soul stage while in his tomb, making him impossible to challenge, Tianfeng used the great families as bait to lure him out. True monarch Tianfeng had already revealed Shui's plan to the two families, who then sought help from their backing sections. They set an inescapable trap, waiting for Shui to fall for it. Under these circumstances, Shui naturally suffered a great loss. However, he was formidable and managed to escape despite being far from his tomb and ambushed. Just as Shui thought he could safely escape back to his tomb, three powerful mid-nascent soul experts lying in wait revealed themselves: true monarch Tianfeng, exalted Guangsha, and an unnamed Yin-attribute demonic cultivator. True monarch Tianfeng and exalted Guangsha were demon cultivators, while the Yin-attribute cultivator was from the demonic path. The three trapped Shui in the raging sand formation and prepared to make their move at noon, when yang energy is at its peak. Although Shui wasn't afraid of sunlight, his strength would still be somewhat diminished at this time. Furthermore, to prevent Shui from receiving reinforcements, they had already dispatched people to trap his corpse fiend army in the tomb using a great formation. Severely injured, fighting at noon, lacking support, and being outside his tomb, every factor served to weaken Shui. If nothing unexpected happened, he was likely facing a fatal accident. However, the unexpected did happen, as Shui was not the only one trapped. Hanli was also caught in the raging sand formation. It turns out that Hanli, seeking the Nether Monarch's art to completely solve his baleful chi problem, had followed clues into the Feng family's secret treasure cave, which happened to be located in the same Shuling mountain range as Xuanye's tomb. Therefore, not long after leaving the secret cave, Hanli was also trapped in the raging sand formation. When the Yin-attribute demonic cultivator saw that Hanli was only a Foundation establishment cultivator, he casually decided to eliminate him. With no other choice, Hanli released the Five Devils soul-locking art, temporarily restoring his mid-nascent soul cultivation base. His state was similar to that of Ultraman. He could fight, but only for a limited time before his power ran out. Under these circumstances, Hanli did not want to get involved in their battle. After revealing his cultivation base, he asked the three to let him out of the formation. Exalted Guangsha slyly stated that if they let Hanli out, Shui might also take the opportunity to escape. He suggested Hanli simply spectate for the time being, promising they would let him go after they dealt with Shui. As a man nearly 300 years old, Hanli certainly didn't believe such a claim. He knew that once Shui was dead, he would be their next target. At this point, Shui also began to try and win Hanli over. In fact, the moment Hanli appeared, Shui knew he was no simple character, as he had already sensed that the two avatars he sent to hunt Hanli had lost their connection to him. Therefore, he naturally assumed that Hanli was responsible for this. In reality, Hanli had never even seen Shui's two avatars, as they had been destroyed by true monarch Tianfeng and his allies. Shui promised Hanli that if they joined forces to break the formation, he would be heavily rewarded afterward. To display his strength, Shui went all out from the start and, despite being severely injured, managed to directly hold off the two mid-nascent soul demon cultivators. At the same time, the Yin-attribute demonic cultivator began manipulating the Great Formation, preparing to crush Shui in the center. Hanli, observing the battle's trajectory, deduced that he was also within the killing zone. With no more reason to pretend, he took action. He first used his wind and thunder wings to flash near the demonic cultivator and then unleashed the purple apex extreme fire, intending to destroy her physical body. This combination was Han Li's standard opening for an instant kill, a routine he had used before to eliminate cultivators of the same rank. However, the Ina Tribute demonic cultivator's combat experience was exceptionally rich. The moment she saw Han Li disappear, she instantly took out a cyan bone wheel to protect herself, successfully thwarting his sneak attack. Undeterred, Han Li released a massive amount of evil-warding divine lightning, intending to trap the demonic cultivator and her shield within it. Knowing the situation was dire, she tried to evade the lightning's range, but Han Li flickered again, appearing right in front of her. He first used his hand to freeze her ancient shield, then his bamboo cloud's warm swords passed directly through it, instantly severing one of her arms. But the assault wasn't over. While the demonic cultivator was trying to stop her bleeding, Han Li thunder teleported behind her once more. With a single thrust of his hand, the purple apex extreme fire on it instantly froze her into a block of ice. At that exact moment, the evil-warding divine lightning fell from the sky, striking the ice block, which began to crack layer by layer along with the physical body inside. At the critical moment, the demonic cultivator's nascent soul escaped, but this was also within Han Li's calculations. It flew right into the preset net of lightning. Han Li formed a hand seal, and the lightning net instantly exploded, completely annihilating the demonic cultivator's nascent soul in a flash of golden light. From the moment Han Li attacked to the complete annihilation of the demonic cultivator's soul, it had only taken the blink of an eye. This terrified the two remaining demon cultivators. They could no longer bother with besieging Xuanya and immediately hid in the yellow sand at the periphery of the formation. Shui was also shocked by Han Li's methods, admitting to himself that, even in his tomb, he couldn't insta-kill a cultivator of the same rank so decisively. The two demons hiding in the sand then mixed black soul-falling sand into the yellow sand. This sand couldn't be resisted with magic treasures and had to be countered with raw magic power, and as its name suggested, it attacked the soul. In response, Han Li released the soul-crying beast. As soon as it appeared, it transformed into a giant ape and, with a single sniff, completely devoured the black mist from the sand. The soul-crying beast's gluttonous feast horrified the two demon cultivators. Just as they were discussing whether to use their other trump cards, they learned that their formation trapping Shui's tomb had failed, and his army of corpse fiends could arrive at any moment. With no other choice, the two demons retreated. After the crisis was resolved, Shui glanced at the soul-crying beast, and an inexplicable sense of fear suddenly arose in his heart. Although the feeling wasn't strong, he understood that the beast was his natural counter. Thinking again of Han Li's terrifying strength, Shui became even more uneasy. Han Li did indeed have ideas about looting Shui, but his own situation was even less optimistic, as his unsealing time was about to end, and he would soon revert to a Foundation establishment cultivator. Before fleeing, however, Han Li decided to blackmail Shui. He stated nonchalantly that although he hadn't formally agreed to join forces, he had indeed saved Shui's life. Therefore, the promised heavy reward should now be honored. Upon hearing that Han Li wanted compensation, Shui was actually relieved. He said that if Han Li didn't mind, he could return to the tomb with him to collect his reward, promising that Han Li would be satisfied. This invitation to the tomb was likely not a plot, but a genuine desire to befriend Han Li. After all, Shui had already admitted to himself that, even in his tomb, he was no match for Han Li. Furthermore, being currently injured, he wouldn't dare to have any ill intentions. However, in his weakened state, Han Li didn't dare go to the tomb either. So, Han Li said it didn't have to be so troublesome and suggested that the heavenly corpse pearl the two demons were coveting seemed like a good enough reward. In reality, Han Li didn't really want the heavenly corpse pearl. In fact, he didn't even know what it was. He only asked for it to give Shui room to bargain. To Han Li's surprise, Xuanya agreed immediately, which in turn stumped Han Li. Seeing Han Li's strange expression, Shui took the initiative to explain that the Heavenly Corpse Pearl was a byproduct of his corpse cultivation art. However, this particular pearl wasn't his own, but one he had obtained by accident when he first acquired the art, meaning he possessed two of them. Hanli didn't care about these details. He took the Heavenly Corpse Pearl and immediately fled. His unsealing time was almost up, and if he stayed any longer, his cover would be blown. Moreover, his spiritual sense had already detected a group of corpse fiends rushing over from a distance. Shui watched Hanli's retreating figure with an uncertain expression, as his clean and hasty departure had aroused suspicion. However, having been repeatedly plotted against and with his vitality greatly damaged, Shui couldn't be bothered with Hanli. The interaction between Hanli and Xuanya was quite interesting. One was severely injured and barely holding on, while the other could lose his power at any moment. Under these circumstances, Hanli still managed to bluff and successfully blackmail him. To his surprise, Shui didn't bargain at all and simply honored the request. After returning to his tomb, Shui didn't stay idle. The Kong family, which he originally controlled, had run into trouble, and the personnel he had placed within the family were completely wiped out. For revenge, after recovering his strength, Shui set up the Imperial Power Ghost formation, trapping the experts of the three great families inside. He also raised his ancient tomb from the ground. In this battle, the three great families suffered heavy losses. Fortunately, at the critical moment, a late-nascent soul cultivator from a nearby Taoist sect arrived, forcing Shui to retreat. The current Shui was only comparable in power to the late-nascent soul stage. There was still a difference between him and a true great cultivator of that level. After Shui retreated into the Shuling mountain range, the late-nascent soul cultivator did not pursue him, judging that a life-or-death battle still carried a significant risk that wasn't worth the potential damage to his own cultivation path. After that, there are no more records of Shui in the novel. His mission was complete, as he had, with his own power, single-handedly pushed Hanli onto the path of body cultivation. First, because Shui annihilated the Feng family, Hanli had the opportunity to enter their secret treasure cave and obtain the Nether Monarch's art. Secondly, a necessary condition to cultivate this art was a Vajra Sarira. Coincidentally, the Vajra cover that Xuanya's son used as bait was refined from one. Finally, the Heavenly Corpse Pearl that Shui gave him could improve a cultivator's physique and enhance physical strength, making his cultivation twice as effective with half the effort. Ultimately, whether it was Shi Xiao or Shui, they were both great benefactors to Hanli. Okay, that's all the content for this video. If you enjoyed it, please don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe. After all, your support is my motivation to keep creating content. I'm White Horse Monkey. See you in the next video.